Alright, so this is the next Q&A. We're going to be doing a Q&A on King Kong. I announced this on Patreon a couple days ago. I'd like to thank all my patrons who sent in questions, for this Q&A. And yeah, as always, if you guys would like to be part of the future Q&As and check out videos that are exclusively on Patreon, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, hit the second tier. That'll allow you to see videos exclusively on Patreon as well, on Patreon. But if you, it will also, like I've been saying, and this is a first tier one, I'll be doing episode reviews of X-Men 97 over on there. So that starts next week, so be prepared for that. But yeah, anyway, so I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions for the Q&A, and let's get started with Tom Hibbert. First question from Tom is, which other universes could you say Kong fits into? Surprisingly, he fit really well in the Boom Studio crossover with Planet of the Apes, and it's not just because of apes. It's like, it kind of makes sense. Skull Island probably missed all of the nuclear war that happened. So I'd say Planet of the Apes universe. Even now, I think like if you did another Planet of the Apes Kong crossover, it'd actually work even more so. So the modern era of apes would actually also work for King Kong. For another universe, I'd say I've done crossovers, multiple versions of this crossover. Jurassic Park. Like how I would fit it in is that Kong's DNA the original 1933 Kong's DNA has been preserved, and it's been cloned by InGen. It's their first mammal. And plus, who wouldn't want to see Kong fight the Indominus, right? Yeah. So those are the two right there. Second question. What's your favorite version of Kong and why? It's really hard to say because for the longest time I really enjoyed all of them. But I'd say my favorite version of Kong is Skull Island Kong. As much I love Monsterverse Kong and like how big he is, but there's something about that original like Skull Island vibe of Kong that I liked. It really had like all the elements of like 76 Kong and all the other Kongs before it. So that's my pick. Specifically Kong Skull Island version. Third question. After watching videos on that awful Skull Island Rise of Kong game, if you had a chance to give Kong a backstory, what would it be? Not too dissimilar from what a lot of the original books was, with having Kong's... And that's what pissed me off about this game so much, is that it followed the original book story of Kong's backstory so well, and it fucked up so bad. Apparently, the same video game studio, the creators, like the heads of the studio, pushed them to come out with the game, and this wasn't... The Kong game was still in development. Like, they produced it way too early. So it was meant to be, like, still in the oven for a good 2 more years, like, at least a year and a half. At least, at maximum, 2 more years before it came out. But they rushed it out. So, kind of like that, but better. So think of those questions, Tom. Moving on now to Jason Voorhees 2011, who asks, what are your thoughts on Peter Jackson's remake? You see, I like it. But I think I like the extended version more, because we get less time on we get more time on the boat, yes, and some of the scenes just are boring, and I see why they got cut out. But what makes me like the extended version more is that we get more Skull Island stuff. We actually have stuff that made you go, man, it feels like we were on Skull Island for such a short time, but on that fucking boat for too long. So, I personally I enjoy the movie, but even I say this is too long, and there are points where it's just too boring. But at that point, you have to understand, Peter Jackson was still coming off the high of the Lord of the Rings film, so it's kind of like that guy who did Good Will Hunting and then he did the Psycho remake, where it's like, I made a great movie, I could do no wrong at this point. Ugh, had to get some water. But yeah, I like it. I like, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. It's a weird way to put it. Second question. How do you think Son of Kong could have been improved had RKO given filmmakers more time rather than demand it be released the same year as the original? I think it would have still been not a great movie. Because you couldn't... There was no way you could catch lightning twice after the success of King Kong. If they had at least given Willis O'Brien and the production team at least a year or waited, they still wouldn't have gotten the movie they wanted. Like, that movie was just DOA no matter how you looked at it. There was no way that movie was going to do any kind of good. But there was no way it could compare to the original. I know some people say, but Bride of Frankenstein, was a great sequel, and it had to compete with Frankenstein. Yeah, because James Whale got whatever he wanted, and also that movie had a majority of its cast come back, its writers, like I said, the director, all of that, and they hit lightning twice. Of course, if you had James Whale back and had the same crew back and a proper story, then yeah. So. Yeah, Son of Kong was just fucked no matter what. And your final question is, how would you incorporate other creatures of Kong's various mythos into the MonsterVerse? I would say, I think what I would like some of the monsters I would love to see show up in the get new versions, the V-Rexes. Maybe make the V-Rexes they'd be easy. Like, the V-Rexes would be so easy to do. Just have them as another predator, not as the same. They would be the third highest predator behind the Skullcrawlers. Because they could reach up to 50 feet at full grown, so they could probably put up a fight against most of the juvenile Skullcrawlers. And I even have they could prey on the Skullcrawlers. For others, maybe I'm doing a lot from Peter Jackson's Kong. The Vestatosaurs, the evolved raptors, they could easily fit into the MonsterVerse too, especially on that version of Skull Island. Have them fighting the spirit tigers, that'd be great. So those are just a few. I would also add the bugs. The worms that ate Andy Serkis. Yeah, just deep-throated his head. Yeah, have those too. Anyway, thank you for those questions, Jason. Moving on now to Hunter Johnson, who asks, what are your thoughts on the story about the lost spider pit scene? It sucks that we never got that, and it's cool that Peter Jackson did an homage to it in the extended edition, not in the extended edition, but it was cool to see the spider pit in Peter Jackson's Kong, as well as he did a stop motion one, which also did pretty well. The spider pit would have been cool, but it probably again, I feel like it just took too much out of Willis O'Brien, and also inevitably got cut, so that sucks. I would have liked to seen it in the original 33 film, but it was cool that it was in the 05 movie, because for some reason Peter Jackson has a weird hard-on for spiders. It's weird. Second question: could MonsterVerse Kong live on the Boiling Isles? Probably. He's now too big for it, but I could see the people of the Boiling Isles worshiping him as a god. I think that's probably what would happen, is that they'd worship him as a god, because he is technically a Titan. And your third question: what would Kong think of Ash Ketchum, and could they be friends? I mean, Ash isn't a blonde woman, so Kong's not going to have any interest in him. Sorry. Kong's got a preference, and immortal boys who capture animals for fighting is not one of them. But thank you for those questions, Hunter. Moving on now to David Deister, who asks, where is a good place to start reading King Kong comics? See, that is a difficult question to answer, honestly. That is a very tough question to answer, mostly because, well, there's so many Kong comics, and a lot of them don't have a lot of continuity. So there's the Boom Studio books. The current one that's out, you may have to get single issue. Look for single issues. Is Kong the Great War, which is King Kong in World War I. There is also the Kong of Skull Island books, which are the origins of Kong. I think those are collected in trade, but they're hard to find. Yeah, a lot of them are pretty tough to find, honestly. Yeah, the problem is that they're few and far between. But those are a few I could think of that you could start on. Second question: what other kaiju characters could Kong fight next? I mean, if we're gonna have by MonsterVerse, maybe him and Behemoth can have a fight. It'd be kind of cool to see him and the two the two mammal kaiju throw down. I think that'd be pretty neat. I'd like to see him fight Tiamat, another of the MonsterVerse ones. Just a few thoughts right there. Third question: if you were hired to write the next Kong film, what would it be about? I guess, like, if it was MonsterVerse, I would have it specifically of whatever happens in Kong the New Empire, Godzilla x Kong the New Empire. I would say that maybe it's Kong dealing with, he's now the official ruler of Hollow Earth, and he's now dealing with a new threat, and that's Ga. Again, in the original continuity, that was the thing that killed Kong's parents. So Ga, I would bring in Ga as the main villain. If I was to do like my own continuity, like my own continuity of King Kong, I would probably have it that my take on that one would be the likes of probably do like a King Kong prequel story of have it set in like the 1800s and have it be like it's the expansion of the British Empire and a group of British soldiers have been washed ashore. Kind of give it like that Lost World feel, and have it these colonial British soldiers encountering the Skull Islanders and Kong, and the golden age of the Kongs. Like there's more than one, something like that. But thank you for those questions, David. Moving on now to Gordon Rajani, who asks, did you watch the 2000s Kong animated series? I did. I rather enjoyed it. It's not great. It's not a great show, especially when you compare it to Godzilla, the animated series. But I do think that show has a lot of merit. I definitely think that show has some serious merit to it, and I really love like the aesthetic, the fun idea that this is the clone of Kong, and he like can biomerge and fight other monsters. It's a lot of it was pretty cool. Even though, yes, I know it was kind of corny too. Second question: would you have liked to seen Toho make more Kong movies just beyond just King Kong versus Godzilla and King Kong Escapes? Yeah, in fact, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, aka Ebra Horror of the Deep, that movie was supposed to be a Kong movie. And you can tell because, like, lightning brings Godzilla back. Godzilla's attracted to a woman. You can clearly... Like, that movie could have easily been a King Kong movie. No doubt in my mind. That movie could have easily been a King Kong film. And yeah, I would have liked to see more with that character. But anyway. Or at least that incarnation of Kong. Third question. So apparently there was a King Kong versus Tarzan novel written by William Murray. Did you read it, and do you have any thoughts on it? I do know about it. I reported on it when it was announced years ago. I do know it's out there. I just can't find the damn thing. That's the only problem. I have not read it because I can't find the damn thing. No matter where I look, I cannot for the life of me find Kong versus Tarzan. So I have looked high and low and high. I can't find the fucking thing. But I would love to read it. Anyway. Thank you for those questions, Gordon. Moving on now to Nolan Unejo, who asks, what other kaiju do you want to see King Kong fight? I already answered this question. How would you pitch your own King Kong movie or series? Again, already answered this question. If you could create your own villain, original villain for King Kong, what would it be? That one I can answer. Like that one I thankfully can answer for you, Nolan. Sorry I couldn't answer the other two, but like rules were rules. Like if it's a question that was already asked, I'm not gonna repeat myself. Like that was one of the rules, sadly. But I can answer this one. If I could make my own villain for Kong. See, Kong doesn't really have a rogues gallery. He really only has Ga, the T-Rexes, the V-Rexes, the Scar King now, the Skull Crawlers, And really, and Camazotz. Yeah, also Camazotz from the Kingdom Kong comic. So there really isn't a lot of Kong doesn't have a lot of rogues gallery. Oh yeah, I forgot the Kraken from the Skull Island animated series. So Kong does have a rogues gallery, but it's not a big one, and it's also very varied as well. So I would say how I would do a Kong villain is probably I would probably go with you see like. One of the biggest this would actually go with nature, because one of the biggest predators that aren't humans to gorillas is leopards. I don't care what anyone says in a fight between a grizzly and a gorilla. The grizzly is clapping those gorilla cheeks. It's like real quick, because I've seen this conversation go on for too long. Who wins in a fight between a gorilla and a grizzly? The grizzly. The grizzly is a almost 1-ton predator who has who can easily decimate a car if it wanted to. It is one of the greatest predators on this planet, and with a single swipe of its claws, it could decapitate you. Yes, technically speaking, the gorilla has like a stronger bite force and is more intelligent, but its strength is nothing compared to a grizzly. And also, it's covered in blubber. So, and also, here's getting back on track. Sorry for that little rant, but here's the reason I'm trying to get at. One of the biggest predators of the gorilla is the leopard. So what I'd like to do for like a villain, so how I would make a Kong, villain, is a like cat-like monster, like a cat, like a leopard shaped cat monster for Kong to fight. Because again, apes have been hunted by leopards and big cats. So it's like, yeah, and also I think Kong needs some more mammal rogues gallery, because all he really has is the Scar King and that's just another monkey. So let's keep that a little varied. So sorry for that little rant, but I swear it had a point. So thank you for those questions, Nolan. Moving on now to Christopher Bennett, aka the Mount Vernon Kid. What's up, Chris? First question: Kong meets Fin Fang Foom. Thoughts? Kong and Foom are fighting. Like, I don't know who'd win that fight, but Kong and Foom are straight up throwing hands. It would be a straight up, like, fist fight between the two of them. That's my thoughts. Second question. What would Kong think of Mighty Joe Young? I think regardless if it's the Disney remake or the original film, I think Kong would find a kinship with Joe. Even though Joe is smaller, I think Kong would see, like, it's another me, it's another ape. And he'll probably mistake it for, like, being a younger ape and try to, like, teach it stuff. But I could see Kong easily, like, befriending Joe. And, like, finding peace that he's not alone. Alright, and your third question is, if you had to pick one Kong movie as a presentation for King Kong greatness, which one? Ooh, that's a really good one. Like, if I was to show someone who's never seen a King Kong movie, what movie would I pick? Like, what of those movies would I choose to represent Kong the best? I'd say, I know it's a cop-out answer, but 1933's Kong. For the special effects, it started everything. It's also, like, very film noir. It's one of those quintessential cinema movies that you have to watch at least once if you're a cinephile. So I would say the original, even though, yes, it feels like a cop-out question, I would definitely pick 1933 Kong. The original. But after that, I would say if they enjoyed that, then I'd go Peter Jackson's Kong. So there you go. Thanks, Chris. Moving on now to Bill McLaughlin, who asks, what's your favorite parody of the biplane scene? There's a few in there. I'd say my favorite one, just like how the joke goes, is from The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, King Homer, where Homer's like trying to climb up the thing and he's just like, And the planes are just flying around like, well, he sure is taking his sweet time. It's such a quick joke, but I love it. It's such a quick joke, but like, it makes so much sense in the context of it. Because you're like, how the hell are they going to wrap this up with the biplanes? And it's like, oh, we're not. Anyway. So your second question is, what are your thoughts on the original Godzilla versus King Kong? I really enjoyed that movie. I really love the shit out of that movie. It's so goofy and dumb. And I actually have I'm going to share this story with you guys real fast. Because that movie has a special connection for me. Like, that movie has a very special connection to me. So when I was about seven, I had a hernia. My family's doctor discovered I had a hernia and it needed surgery correcting. So I had to go into surgery. Like, the night before I had to go into surgery, I basically, I was spending, my family and I spent the night at my grandparents, and my great-grandmother found, because I had been looking for it everywhere, after I found in a little library book that King Kong had fought Godzilla, and I was like, I have to find this. I have to see Godzilla and King Kong fight. So, my great-grandmother found the VHS of King Kong versus Godzilla. And, yes, it was the American cut, no duh. And I really loved the movie. It has a very special connection, because my whole family watched it. We all watched it. I was, like, cheering and having a lot of fun. And I love the movie. So, yes, it's goofy. Looking back on it, it is goofy. And it does have its flaws, but it's a fun movie. I would always have it if I was to ever do another top 10 Godzilla movie lists. This would be on that list somewhere. So there you go. Third question: would you want to see a King Kong movie in the vein of Godzilla -1? I think that would be pretty cool. It's just like, how would you would it be a dark and serious Kong movie? I think that would be really cool. It's just like, how would you do that tone? Like, how do you do the tone? Because the whole point of Godzilla -1 wasn't it wasn't just Godzilla per se. You know, it was other factors too, like post-war Japan, all of that. So how do you Peter Jackson came close with talking with those themes of the Great Depression. So if you did that more, if you took those themes that Peter Jackson had in the background of the Great Depression and how shitty it was, then I would say, yeah, go. That's how I would probably go with a -1 vein. But anyway, thank you for those questions, Bill. Moving on now to Brittany Digger, who one of the new patrons. Hello. And Brittany's first question is, what are your thoughts on the Mighty Kong animated movie? Oh, that movie. I've seen that movie all of once. I never want to watch it again. It's so bad. It is so goddamn bad. The songs aren't good. And yes, I know Jodie Benson, who played Ariel, she tries her best, man. But this movie's just the worst. Yeah, that's a movie I forget happens, but yeah, I want to forget, but I can't. Second question: would you like to see Willis O'Brien propose King Kong versus Prometheus, aka Frankenstein, become a movie? Absolutely. For those who don't know, Godzilla vs. King Kong was originally supposed to be King Kong vs. Frankenstein, and that idea was pitched by Willis O'Brien, but he went to RKO, and one of the movie producers stole that idea and pitched it to Toho, and eventually evolved into King Kong vs. Godzilla. I would love it, because Frankenstein is public domain. Any studio can do that. I mean, Warner Brothers can do that. Maybe have it was supposed to be originally a Kong, King Kong fighting a Frankenstein. Frankenstein makes a monster from animal parts, and the two monsters fight. So I would love that. I would absolutely enjoy the idea of King Kong finally doing battle with the Frankenstein monsters Willis O'Brien intended. 100% love it. And your final question is, have you played the video game that's based on the 2005 Peter Jackson King Kong? Ha! Ha ha ha! Ha! Have I played it? Ha ha ha! Have I played it? Have I played it? Have I played it? Yeah? I own this. I I still play it on my Xbox. Like, I will pop this in for replay value. It's a fun game. I love this. I've owned this game three different times in my life. One when I was young, and then I found it again later in life, and now this is the third time buying this game because I would lose the other copies. And yeah, it's so good. It's so goddamn good. The graphics are old by today's standards, but back then, like, this is arguably the best movie adaptation of a video game. Like, I know a majority sucks, but this is the exception to the exception to the rule. So yeah, I love this fucking game. Anyway, I might even play it after this. Who knows? But thank you for those questions, Brittany. Moving on now to Alistair Bondman, who asks, what are your favorite Skull Island creatures beside Kong, the V-Rexes, and the Skull Crawlers? I like the Spirit Tiger from the MonsterVerse comics. I really enjoy the Spirit Tiger. I also really like the Vestatosaurs, the bigger raptors. I would also say that the what are they called? The little bats with like that have like the knife faces that cut people in half. You saw them in Skull Island where they just grab a guy and then they just start cutting him apart in midair. That was that's a really good one. I rather enjoy that one. I rather enjoy those monsters. So, those are just a few. Second question. Between the 2005 King Kong, Skull Island, and the MonsterVerse King of the Monsters, which version of Skull Island would you want to live on less, and why is which deadlier? So, between the Skull Island from the MonsterVerse and the 2005 Skull Island, at least on Skull Island, if you get to the Iwi tribe, you're safe. If you can get to the Iwis, you're safe. But if you get to like if the Skull Islanders on the 05 on the Peter Jackson Kong movie find you, you're fucked. At least there's a safe zone. The monsters are way more terrifying, but at least if you can get there, and you will be safe with the Iwis. But yeah, there's no and seeing them, like, if I fall into the bug pit, and I live, I'm just offing myself right there. So, objectively, being killed by, like, the Skull Crawlers, the Spirit Tigers, or the other monsters we see in the MonsterVerse are awful, but, like, 2005 Skull Island is horrendous on every level. So, I'd pick MonsterVerse. I'd pick MonsterVerse to live on, and not the 05 Kong. Anyway, third question. In some of your older videos, you mentioned there was another King of Skull Island that Kong and his kin deposed. And while everyone loves the V-Rexes and Skull Crawlers, of course the rival between Godzilla and Kong, what other kaiju or monster creatures would you create? I already answered this question. Sorry, Alistair, I kind of already answered this question of creating my own monster. But to answer your question real fast, the monster's name you're thinking of is Ga. That's the monster you're thinking of is Ga. But thank you anyway. So thank you for those questions, Alistair. Moving on now to Imagine8, who asks, what are your thoughts on the 1976 Kong? Funny enough, that is the first... excuse me. That's the first Kong movie I ever watched. Yeah, I always have this weird thing where I see... not the original film, but I always like the sequel or the remake first. It's weird. But, the 1975 Kong, I like it. It has its flaws, but, like, I love the final fight with the choppers. I love the suit, even though there's a really creepy part where it's Stan Winston in the Kong suit, and he's, like, blow-drying Anne... or Dwan, excuse me, yeah, it's Dwan. It was Jessica Lange's first big role, and it's such a weird movie. There's some weird scenes, like when Dwan is talking to Jeff Bridges' character, and she's like, "Oh, you're this sign because you're always so uptight," and I'm like, I'd have thrown her off the goddamn boat after that. But yeah, it's still really good. I still really enjoy it. I really love it, and I actually would not mind owning it on like DVD or Blu-ray, to be honest. So, second question. In 1962, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Kong developed the ability to use lightning. Do you think the MonsterVerse Kong should have that ability and go against Godzilla's atomic breath? I don't think they'll give him the electric abilities. That's why they gave him, like, the Beast Glove or the axe to compete with Kong, to compete with Godzilla on a different level. Like, that's where I kind of look at it, is they're not going to give him the electric ability, even though I never liked the electric ability either. Like, it just made no sense. It was just a reference to Frankenstein. But anyway, and your final question is, how would Kong go against the kaiju from the Primal Rage franchise? I think he could actually, I think he could seriously deal some damage. Especially, Kong fighting Chaos. That would be a fight I'd love to see. Kong and Chaos fighting. Or, him teaming up with Blizzard. Great, I would love that. But Kong would easily fit into the Primal Rage universe, honestly. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much my King Kong Q&A. I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions. This was a lot of fun to do. And like I said, if you guys would like to be part of the next Q&A whenever that happens, just hit the link below, head on to my Patreon, hit the second tier. That'll allow you access to do that, as well as the exclusive videos over on Patreon, as well as, the stuff in the first tier with the reviews and the polls. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.